So far, so good. PJNet.TV. It is 9 p.m. East Coast in the United States. You are watching The Bumper. But it gets better. We're doing a recording of this for quality assurance purposes. We are streaming to Facebook. We're streaming to Twitter. We are streaming to YouTube, and our guest, first-time guest, is standing by in our green room, and our chat room is waiting. We will start a countdown to Studio 37 Alpha. Well, good evening and welcome to PJNet.TV. It says so there, and it says so there. I'm your host, Coach Prasick, and I'm glad you've joined us. And we are excited always to have a first-time guest, and that's exactly what we've got. And she has quite a story, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to be very interested in hearing what she has to say. And in fact, she's kind of written a book on it. But I think it would be better, in fact, I know it would be better, if we let her tell you about that. And let's bring her out of the green room and onto the big screen, the big stage here at PJNet.TV. Introducing, I'll put her name up here so that I won't forget it, Janet Morris Grimes.
It's Janet Morris Grimes.
Okay, and Janet comes to us from the great state of, I think, Kentucky, you said, somewhere up there. You're just have you always lived in the South?
Yes, I always lived in the South. I'm from Nashville. We've been in Kentucky maybe 5 years, and we love it, but we're still in Nashville once a month. It'll always be home for us, I think.
I get it. That makes sense. And I've grown up in the South, and I just I love the hospitality, the culture, and so forth. But Janet, you have an interesting story, and it starts out with growing up fatherless. Now, when I say fatherless, I don't mean without a good father figure. You were literally fatherless, literally.
Right. Life is funny. Sometimes your life chooses you. You don't choose your life. But the way it's been for us, my father was a preacher down in Mississippi, and he was killed in a car wreck when I was a baby. I was 6 months old. My sister was 3. And she has a few memories, maybe memories of him, stories she's heard people tell and things. But I didn't have that. So it was just the 3 of us, my mom and my sister and I. But we had a great life. It wasn't something we talked about very often. It was just an awareness, kind of an undercurrent of this. Okay, other people have a father, we don't. What does it look like? It made me do 2 things. It made me watch everybody else's daddies and just to imagine, what would this be like? What would that be like? And it also made me, we were in church all the time, and it made me somewhere probably, I don't know, age 6 or 7, I heard the scripture that God is father to the fatherless. And I thought I was the luckiest girl in the world, because I was like, well, God gets to be my father. So I just approached it from that perspective, as if I was crawling into God's lap and saying, okay, well, here's what I've noticed. Here's what I need. And that's it's an interesting way to look at it, because I think as I've grown in my relationship with God and families and talking to I don't think adults know how to approach God that way. They think of him as scary and judgmental. And I've never had that to fight through. I've never had a bad example of a father to fight through. Mm-hmm. So I think in some ways it gave me the advantage.
Did you gravitate toward male figures in your life, maybe teachers, coaches, pastors, other people? Did you find a way to fill that gap with another man?
I think I just observed. There weren't too many. We had some uncles, but we probably saw them 3 or 4 times a year. Mm-hmm. I just watched and learned and grew to respect, what fathers had to offer. And but I will say our mother did a wonderful job raising us, and it It's not like we lacked for anything. I was just more of the question. The older I got, the more I wanted to know. I needed proof that he was real, even though I wouldn't say it didn't affect everyday life, except it really does affect everyday life. It affects every minute.
Mm-hmm.
I used to tell people it's not like he left and came back. He never came back, so we still have to deal with it every single day. But again, the I didn't have the abandonment of someone choosing to leave or something
Right.
like that. I feel like it gave me a really healthy way to approach God, and I was able to pick and choose my fairy tale, if you will. So that was that was where my love of story came from. So as we later on, as we talk about the book and stories in general, if you start by saying, "What if he was this? What if he was a war hero? What if he was a king?"
Mm-hmm.
Then anything was possible because I didn't have the truth to hold me back. So
um, I guess in day-to-day interaction, you encounter people in ordinary life, and have you had awkward moments, when people, not knowing you personally, would ask questions that kind of put you on the spot? Did you feel weird on Father's Day sitting in church listening to the pastor speak about the great father figure and how did that impact you growing up? Did you shake it off? Did you cope with it, or how'd you get through?
I think I was just a weird kid, honestly. Like I said, once I heard that verse that said God is father to the fatherless, I thought I thought it was like our little secret. Like, okay, well, he's going to be my father. And what I did was, like I said, I spent my whole life watching everyone's dads. So I said, all right, if you're going to be my father, I need you to do these things that I've seen fathers do, and that's simple things. I need you to fix what's broken. I want you to carry me. I want you to laugh with me or tickle me, or it was very personal, human things I was asking him to do, and then I would just watch and see how he did it. So I've always felt protected. I've always felt like it's not the story I would have chosen, but I've never been alone in it, if that makes sense. And so the awkwardness, if people didn't know our story, I was more gravitated towards people who, like I said, the older I got, the more I needed to find someone who knew him. So when my sister got married, it had been 25 years since Daddy had died, and I went on this mission to track down people, his best friends from college, and I asked them to send us letters, anything I could find, because I just, since I wanted to make him a part of her wedding. And
Mm.
it's been odd. Like, if you would talk to me when I was 8, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But at 38, I needed to talk about it more. So that's just, like I said, I was a weird kid. I feel like I've always been a grown up in some aspects.
Well, you grow up fast, when situations,
Right.
you step up. I'm thinking about so many people that have had the just tragedy, the tragic circumstance. Some in the case like yours, where you lost your father to a car accident, but in many cases it's not that. It's drug addiction, it's abandonment,
Right.
it's alcoholism, whatever, sickness, whatever. And this happened to you as well as your sister at a very young and tender
Right.
age. So many people
Right.
cope with it differently than things have turned out for you. They turn to drugs, they turn to sex, they have a distorted view of reality. Um,
Right.
is it fair to say, can I assume that your mother instilled in you that you and your sister had a name to live up to, a reputation and a legacy? Did that impact you? And if not, how do you feel that you didn't go those other paths that would have been so dysfunctional?
Right. Well, the statistics aren't in our favor for sure. But again, we had a really strong mother who put us first. She pointed us to God. She didn't know how to answer all our questions because nobody does, but we knew we had a Father in heaven, and we knew we wanted to get there. So I think that probably is what's different is that we may have made our mistakes along the way, but made bad choices. Nothing like not lifestyle changes, but we weren't ever going to do anything to mess that up. So our goal to this day, we're 50-year-olds, that are going to do whatever we can to get to heaven because we've got someone else waiting for us there. So I don't know why it stuck with us. I do think there's an awareness when you grow up in that single parent home. You're aware. We were very aware of what our mother was going through. So if bills were tight, if maybe I took on her emotions. I don't know. She had to work 2 jobs and be strong for us, but so we're just more aware of what she was feeling, and a lot of that, and not wanting to let her down as well. So I think it's maybe we were easier than some. You'd have to ask her about that.
Before we get into your book, how did this impact you and your sister, for that matter, in terms of dating, marriage, parenting, and that type of thing?
I've been married for 37 years. I got married very young, and had never been around a marriage. So I think it made it really hard, probably on my husband, because I'd never seen that you could slam a door or be angry and come back the next day. The first argument we got into, I just assumed, I guess that's it. I guess we tried. So it took a while to learn that that's okay, and that you can talk through those things. I think it took a while to let someone in and not try to be strong all the time. So, and then my sister, she's single, but it's a little harder for her, I think, to trust or to put that effort into it because she's been hurt a few times. So it's life as an adult is hard. So but again, same thing. We're never alone in it. God never leaves us. And that's something other people may feel God leaves them. I don't, since he's all we had, we've never felt that. We're always going to have God on our side because it says God is father to the fatherless. So.
Before we turn to your book, what would you say to the women out there who have lost their father through whatever the circumstance, that perhaps are not coping the same way that you did? What would you tell them? How do we turn them around and get them off the path that is dysfunctional?
I would say that, I don't have the before and after. I didn't have to go through, I don't know life before.
Right.
So like I said, I could make it a fairy tale. I could make it as good as I wanted it to be. So I think a lot of times you got to let go of the bad. If someone did choose to leave you, if my father were out there in the world somewhere, I would do anything to find him. So sometimes you try to repair relationships. It doesn't work, but I would just say there's a God who's crazy about you. There's a God who saw every time you felt invisible or felt pushed aside or not important, and that you can crawl into his lap and tell him what you needed all along. Some earthly fathers don't know how to do that, or they assume you're better off without them, or there's a lot of stories that I wish I could fix every one of them, put them back together and heal that broken relationship, because it's so important. But God's there, and he sees, and he knows the empty places. So I think that just start there and do like I did when I was 5 or 6. Just tell him what you need. I'd love it if today you'd hold me, because this is really heavy and I can't carry it by myself. So I still talk to him like I'm 5 or 6, and it's worked out pretty well for us.
Janet, clearly all of this has impacted you tremendously. Once you got to be an adult, you said you were, I don't want you to have to say your age, but you're not just starting your professional career. No,
I already said my age. We're 50-year-olds.
I remember.
That still need a hug from our dad.
Yeah. You just came out with the book pictured behind me, Solomon's Pond.
Porch.
Where? Yes,
Solomon's
that's what it says.
Yeah.
Solomon's porch. I said pond. because there's a pond behind me, and I was looking at it. Why did it take so long? Obviously, your fatherlessness had everything to do with the inspiration for this book, but it took you to this point in your life to put this in the form of a book. When did the nudge, the urge to document this, to write it down, to do it as a book, when did that bug bite you?
Well, I think when I was again, the making up stories I've always done. In sixth grade, we had one of those crazy assignments that, use these 4 sentences in a paragraph. And my paragraph ended up being 8 pages long because I made up a whole story to go with these sentences. I didn't just cram them in there. And oddly enough, the story was about an orphan. So it's funny how there's the themes, I guess. So back then, I think I knew I was a writer. I wanted to be a writer. This book is not about being fatherless, but this book is about being kind and connections and how everyone's got a story and we're all broken. It's about a military town and a man with dementia. So it in itself is not about being fatherless, but it is about how this man who's had tragedy of his own reaches out to others and changes the lives of people he comes in contact with. He kind of moves past his own story to reach out to others, and then it ends up changing their lives. So it's about a military town that's forgotten and abandoned, and a man who's forgotten and abandoned. He gets hit by a car and no one knows who he is, and it all happens pretty quickly, but it's a great story, and I think it's connected with people of all ages, men, women. Had a 12-year-old tell me it was great. So I think there's a lesson in it for everyone, and the message is really strong and healing, and that's what I wanted.
This book is literally hot off the press. Tell us the journey from the bug biting to write the book to getting that advanced copy and getting it on the market. It's been a ride.
It is hot off the press. It came out about 2 weeks ago through a publisher called Elk Lake Publishing, and so with the smaller publishers, the marketing is up to me. I've got a great product; it's well vetted, and that's what I wanted. A great product with a chance. And so now it's up to us to find its readers and find the people that I think Solomon can help. The story itself, I worked on about 2 years. It just kind of comes to you. Writing is a weird process because I talk about Solomon like he's real. My kids talk about him like he's real. Now he's part of our family, and the cover is my husband. I made him dress like Solomon. So that's his profile on the cover. And so he's going to be real by the time we get done with him. But it's just a story of kindness and what I wanted. I worked on it for 2 years. I submitted to a few agents. And then finally, actually, I went through a period of rejection with writing. When you're first getting started, it is so hard to know how to do that. And like last October or so, I was ready to just give up. Maybe I don't need to invest time in this because there's so much going on in life right now. And so I prayed about it and said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to send out anything I've ever written. And if someone picks it up, that's great. And if someone doesn't, then we're done. And I got a contract the next day. So it was a God moment, and I needed to reach that low level to get ready for everything coming now. So I'm thrilled with it, but I'm most thrilled that it's connecting with readers and that grandmothers are sharing it with their granddaughters, and it's safe to do that. And people are pulling for the bad guy. I mean, it's got a lot of twists and turns, and I'm thrilled with that response.
Yeah. Well, when you're doing this the way you're doing it, you're told to go get a bunch of social media platform and do a website and blog and do all this stuff. So you have your website at janetmorrisgrimes.com. Not sure where you came up with that that name for a website, but it wasn't taken. I was trying to get that name, and somebody had already taken
I'm
it.
sure. I'm sure.
It's a whole new world. I mean, so you put the website together. So what do? You go to the website and you can buy the book. Is that pretty much it, or do you have bigger plans for that website?
Well, yeah, we're still working on the website. I think soon it will have the latest updates about the book. The book is in its infant stages, obviously, but I wanted it to build like a marathon. I didn't want it to come out and then a month later everyone forget about it.
Right.
Word of mouth and people sharing it with family members, whatever. I feel like we're on a good roll here. So the news about the book will be there. We've actually got a book launch at my church in Nashville coming up September 19th. So there'll be a book signing event there, and it'll be outside on a pavilion. We're going to take over and make it Solomon's Porch. So
Hmm.
it's I'm just excited about the ways this can go, and that so far I'd go on these walks and everything God put in my head when I would walk and say, well, what if we did this? And what, because it's really just that's how writing goes for me. It's kind of me and God on a playground playing with words and ideas, and we'll see where it takes us. But if we stopped today, I'd still be thrilled with the response because people love the story and it's hitting them where it's healing them where I hoped it would. So
I'm involved in athletics, and this is the kind of question that we coaches just hate. You know,
right,
you,
right,
you've just won. The whatever. And you need a minute to just kind of process all the sacrifice and
right.
everything that went into that victory. And so the microphones are up in your face, and I've been on both sides of that mic. And they're saying, well,
Yeah.
what about next week? And it's like, can I just celebrate what my can so I'm going to do it anyway. Have you
All right.
given what's next? Just going to
Well,
sell a million of them
I
and
know there'll be
retire?
a. There you go. You said it. I think there'll be a sequel because, um, like I said, the story's about a military town and people come and go in
Hmm.
military towns all the time. So there's so many ways it can go from here. I'm working on a series of children's books. Those hopefully will be out next spring or summer. We've still got some work to do on those. But again, once I came to that point where I thought I was quitting, those children's books were back there, and I haven't thrown those out to the world yet, like I was supposed to. In my, that meme of like I don't know Spanky or somebody from the Little Rascals, and he's just throwing things out the window, like I'm so mad, and that was me with anything I'd ever written. So I've got to get the children's books done, and just because now I've got 4 grandchildren, and I've got some kids' books to write for them. So check back with me. I'd like to know where we're headed as well.
Okay. Well, folks, Janet, thank you so much for sharing with us, folks. I'll put the name back up there, Janet Morris Grimes. Keep that name in your head because you're probably going to be seeing it again in a different
I
way.
appreciate that, Mark.
But thanks for sharing with
Thanks
us,
for the
Janet.
chance, and it has been great talking to you.
All right, we've enjoyed your story. Well, folks, that you see right there is the view high atop the Eagle's Nest broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv. And whatever you are thinking about doing, if that includes not staying, I urge you to change your mind. At the bottom of the hour, as always, we will have Casper from the great state of Colorado, and he is on fire. Folks, for those of you involved in PJNet, or maybe those of you that are not, I do have some just outstanding news and updates I would like to bring you after we conclude our time with Casper. So before I leave and redo the studio for him, I want to ask you to challenge yourself with these 2 questions. They're simple. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? And then secondly, when was that? And don't be satisfied with either answer.